There are 8 reasons why I don't buy brand new developments or off-plan developments. And in this video, I'm going to break it down and show you all those 8 reasons. My name is Neil Forster from Organic Growth. And before we get started, if you enjoy this content, please subscribe. And then when we next upload content, you'll be advised. Okay, when you as an investor in buy-to-let properties, it's very tempting to go and buy a brand new unit. You know, it's difficult to find new units, and I see many people, they hook up with the developer, and every time the developer does a new complex, they just say, I'll have one. And what they're not realizing is that they're overpaying vastly. And that brings me to my first of the 8 reasons, and that is price. When you are buying a brand new unit, you end up paying almost double the rate of a second-hand unit. And as you know, as soon as your tenant moves in, you've now got a second-hand unit. So I said to myself, well, why buy a brand new unit? When buying brand new, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by the free offerings and the excellent marketing of these developers. For example, they always say no transfer fees. And that's really exciting, because you think, well, I can get 100% finance and I don't have to pay my deposit. Well, actually, you're only saving about 20 grand, because in the developments that I invest in anyway, I invest in under the £1 million mark, and that means that there are no transfer duties as such, and all we're dealing with is attorney's fees. And we're looking at 20,000 rand transfer fees. They don't cover the bond registration costs. That's another 20,000. So it's by the time you're in it, you realize actually I'm paying the bond registration fees, but I'm paying no transfer fees. And actually all that the developer is offering you is that he'll pay the attorney's fees for the transfer section. So it's about a 20,000 rand savings. The other thing I see is very popular is that new developers, they offer free appliances. Like you move into, how cool, you move into a new apartment and it's got a washing machine plumbed in and ready for you, and maybe a fridge. And you think, wow, this is really awesome. You know, it's a first-time home buyer. It's very attractive. I don't have to pay a deposit, and I get free appliances. So it really attracts the first-time home buyers. And as an investor, we don't want to be suckered by things like that, because 20,000 rand transfer duties and another 10,000 rands worth of appliances is 30,000 rand. Why would you pay double for your property to save 30,000 rand? It just doesn't make sense. To give you some examples, I did a 5-minute search on Property 24 at new developments in Midrand. And the prices for new developments in Midrand range between 16 and 32,000 rand per square meter. It's very important to work that out. When you see the prices advertised, they try and hide the sizes. You know, they're very clever. When you look at an advert, you see a price, they'll say prices from 1 million, and then a little bit further down, you'll see the size of the unit. But it's very hard for the average person to relate to, well, how big is 38 square meters, you know? It seems like, hey, don't really know. And then they show you a pretty picture, and you think, okay, it's fine. But actually, what you need to do is you work out the rate per square meter. And I've seen in the Midrand area, they range from about 32,000 rand a square meter down in the Waterfall area, and in the more remote areas, it goes down to about 16,000 rand a square meter. But very close to that, to where you're buying units at 32,000. When I say very close, I'm saying less than a kilometer away. Targer Realty, our associated company, are selling second-hand townhouses for about 10,000 and less per square meter. So it's really a big difference between second-hand and brand new. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is unrealistic levies. Now, any investor will tell you how important it is to keep your running costs low, and how much high levies really erode your earnings. Because at the end of the day, you want to earn money out of this, and the more you're spending on levies, the less you earn. And what developers do, see developers in a situation that they run the body corporate until the owners buy. And they're on site, so they've got their own security already, the security is paid for. They're managing it in-house, so there's no management company to pay. And maintenance, they've got a full-on maintenance team there because they're busy constructing. So they don't have to budget for those things. So there's no need for it to be in the levy. And because it's so brand new, there is obviously no reserve fund. So in the initial levies that you see advertised, they're real, but they last a year. And unfortunately, a year later, when the new body corporate has taken over and they have to budget for a management company and they have to put away reserves for the reserve maintenance fund, and you see the levies just go through the roof. The third reason that I don't buy off-plan and I don't buy brand new properties is the return on investment. As an investor, you need a high return on investment, and return on investment really means the return, what you get out of it, divided by what you've invested. And I've seen many adverts by developers saying guaranteed 8% return, or guaranteed 9% return, or 10%, or 11%, whatever the percentage is. And to the average man in the street, they think, well, that's my return, the average investor. And actually, in all my years, which has been more than 30 of them, in property investment in South Africa, I haven't found a single standard. There's no real standard for this is how one works out return on investment on property. Everyone has their own formula. So at Organic Growth, we've developed what we call our return on investment factor. So nobody can argue with us. But it's really just a method of working out the value of a brand new unit or a fairly new unit that you're buying and comparing it to others. So it's an apples and apples comparison. We call it our litmus test. And in that test, what we do is we look at what we expect the property to grow at. So in other words, we factor in some capital growth, and we look at the actual costs, the levies, the management costs, the agency fees, all those costs, and we look at the market-related rental. And we plug them into a spreadsheet, and we measure about 4 or 5 parameters. And we use that to compare different developments to each other. So now you can imagine, as a brand new developer who's offering you 9% or 11%, you don't really know what his formula is. And then the other thing is that they offer guaranteed rentals. So what they might do is they might guarantee that this property will get you a rental of 10,000 Rand a month. And if they find a tenant for less than it, they'll subsidize the balance. In fact, they will pay you the rental for a year. But the trouble is, at the end of the year, now you've done all your calculations based on this, you think it's right, there's a tenant, all that sort of thing. But they might have obtained that tenant either by subsidizing his rental or offering him no deposit and 2 months rent free, all kinds of deals. They really are in a position to manipulate the situation. And a year later, when you have to find a new tenant or renew the tenant, you find, hang on a second, I can't get that rental anymore. And then you find that it's too late, but you didn't get what you actually bought. And since return on investment is like I said a minute or two ago, it's your net income. In other words, all your income less your expenses divided by what you paid in cash. And it makes sense that if an investor overinflates the rental, and as I mentioned in the previous point, is underestimating the levies, it's going to look very attractive. And you can literally make the numbers look like you want them to look. The fourth reason is size, and that size does matter. When it comes to an investment where you are investing in a property and you expect your tenants to fit all their furniture in there, size really matters. And if you're a first-time buyer and you've gone and bought a townhouse to live in, and the pretty pictures showed a couch and all the furniture in place, and when you come to move and you think, oh, I just can't fit in here. And you'll be very disappointed. And I see this over and over again. And the thing is, in the architectural drawings, they draw purpose-built furniture. So there'll be a double bed, but there won't be a queen-size bed or king-size bed. And then the furniture in the lounge will be purpose-designed. Now, who's got little square couches and little square chairs that fit around a perfect little coffee table? You know, we all have our own tastes, and very rarely are those tastes exactly like you see in a drawing. And so it's really important when you're buying a property to be able to walk into it and get a feel for it. In fact, it's better to buy a second-hand property when there's actually real furniture in it. Then you get to see the actual size. The fifth reason I don't buy brand new properties or properties off plan is because of the building snags. Every developer will make mistakes, it's human, we expect that. And most developers will stay on site for a few months after the development is complete, fixing all the snags. How do you develop 100, 200 units without there being some problems? And the unfortunate thing is, when you're an investor, you inspect it when you get your property. When they hand you the keys, you do a good inspection, if you're not lazy. And then you install your tenants. And very often you don't see the snags. You don't see all of them. And like, how can you tell when you're looking at a property that the built-in braai or the built-in fireplace, the chimney is clear? You just can't see it. How do you get to know whether the plumbing is really functioning, it's not going to be backing up and so on? So it's got to be lived in first. And then, so you're now dependent on your tenants telling you whether there are real snags or not. And they might be very fastidious or they might be lazy. And they say, oh, this is how it is. Or they ask, or the tenant themselves talks to the maintenance team that's around and says, come and have a look here. And they say, yeah, but it doesn't really happen. And then a year or so later, when you wake up and smell the roses, you see you've got a real problem, and now the developer's moved off site. And it's really hard to get them back to fix any snags. And you end up having to fix them yourself or actually sue them. And we're in the property business, we're not in the litigation business. So who wants to sue anybody? I have an example where I bought a brand new property. I've bought a few in my life. I've stopped now. This was in a complex called Telford Court in North Riding. And it's got a built-in braai, which is a lovely feature. But fortunately, before the developers moved off site, my tenants built a fire in the built-in braai, because South Africans, we love to braai, and found it completely blocked. And it's a ground, first and second floor complex, so the roof is very, very high. You can't just pop up there. But the developers were still on site, and they went up and had a look. And actually, my chimney had been built over. It was completely built over. It was bricked in. So I don't know what happened there, but somewhere along the line, the builder on the roof, maybe he was doing a joke, I don't know what it was, but he actually bricked it up. And my chimney was there, but it wasn't there. And so I got out of jail free there. The sixth reason that I don't buy off-plan or brand new properties is location. Now we all know, if you're an investor, that location is the most important factor in any property. It's more important than the actual property itself. It stands to reason then that developers will develop in the best possible location, because for them the land is what changes the price, the bricks cost the same. So they try and develop in the best possible locations, and for every developer it's this whole tug of war. Do I pay a really high price for the land and try and achieve a higher price than the development, or do I just go and build out there in the new area? And unfortunately, as investors, if you're buying brand new off plan, that's the choice you have. You get to really overpay for the good areas, or pay a reasonable price, maybe 16,000 Rand a square meter, for a property that's far away. It's not in the prime areas, it'll maybe future prime areas. Like for example, if you're investing in Midrand now, it's a prime area, but 20 years ago it was a future prime area. And 20 years is a long time to wait for development to catch up to your investment. So if the property is way out of the way, you're going to pay a lower price, but you're not going to get those rentals, because your tenants want to live where the action is. They want to live near to work, they want to live near to the malls and schools and the developed areas. In the example I mentioned earlier when I was talking about price, I spoke about Midrand. And now the southern part of Midrand is called Waterfall. And in Waterfall, for a brand new townhouse, you're paying 30,000 Rand a square meter. And a few hundred meters away, for a second-hand property, you can pay 10,000 Rand a square meter. So what you have to weigh up as an investor is, do I pay a fortune for properties in a really good area, or do I pay reasonable prices but for a property that's in a bad area? And both of those are not good options, because you're an investor, you're trying to get a return on investment, a return on your money. Now the last two reasons that I don't buy off-plan or brand new complexes has got to do with the body corporate. Now every complex, every sectional title complex comprises of a body corporate. Now the body corporate is actually all the owners of those units. They're all part. When you become an owner of a complex, you are automatically a body corporate member. And then the body corporate elects 5 or 6 trustees as like a committee that are going to run the complex on your behalf. Now it stands to reason that if you pick the wrong people, your complex is going down. They're not going to do a very good job. So my 7th reason why I don't buy brand new townhouses has got to do with immature body corporates. Now, when you think about it, most townhouse complexes are aimed at other investors and first-time home buyers. Now, investors, by their very nature, they might own multiple units. They can't get involved in the day-to-day running of the body corporate. They're actually hoping that the owners, the people who live there, who are also owners, will look after it for them. And that's valid, that's what happens. But the trouble is, in a brand new complex, you've got a whole lot of first-time home buyers. So now you've got a body corporate made up of 6 people, and this is their first home. And they might be very excited about it and so on, but they just don't know. They just don't know. And now they're managing a budget of R1 million a month, and they have to, what a body corporate does is they appoint a managing agent to handle the levies and so on. And the managing agent is there to act on the instructions of the trustees. But if the trustees are giving poor instructions or they're not unified in their direction, the complex just stalls. I've noticed that it can take up to about 10 years for a complex to settle down. 10 years from brand new till when it's settled down with a group of trustees who know what they're doing, they're committed, the budget is settled, and everybody gets on with it. I'll give you an example. One of the complexes I bought in, I didn't buy brand new in this complex, it was called Los Alamos in Northgate. There were a lot of problems, there was a lot of water damage. It's a Spanish style complex, and there were these parapets and water was getting in there, so it was cracked. It was looking like Monte Cassino. In fact, I think Monte Cassino probably went to Los Alamos to go and get some ideas. It really was looking like a slum. And the gardens were in terrible state too, so clearly the body corporate wasn't doing things right. And I went in to go and investigate. I was looking to buy units at the time. I drove in and I drove straight out. I thought, I'm out of here. And on the way out at the gate, I saw these color swatches. So I asked the security guard, what's going on? He said, no, they're busy deciding to paint. And they've just got a new caretaker. So I did a U-turn and I went back to talk to the caretaker. And I discovered that they just appointed a caretaker. The body corporate had just come right, but they had taken about 2 years to decide to repaint. And then they took about another year to decide what color. So by the time they got to the point where they were awarding a contract to a contractor, the place was looking terrible, terrible shape. So I bought a bargain of a lifetime. There was a unit standing empty there. It was a bank repossession. I contacted the bank and I bought a 3-bedroom townhouse for 150,000 Rand with no transfer costs. And what happened was they painted the place, and I got my timing really right, and that I bought it at a point where in the year that I bought it, it turned from a slum into a nice new Spanish style complex, and the garden looked great and the values jumped up. But you don't want to be the sucker who buys brand new and lives with those first few years of value depreciating when the body corporate works out, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. In another complex, I saw an immature body corporate appoint a painting contractor that didn't have experience. Maybe it was a friend of a friend, I don't know. But about 60% into the contract, they ran out of money. They said they had paid the contractor all the money that they'd collected as per the contract, but the place wasn't finished. And what do? You've got to pay more money to get it redone. The 8th reason why I don't buy in brand new complexes or off-plan has got to do with corrupt or really incompetent managing agents. And I'm speaking from personal experience here. I know of 2 complexes, and I'll name them. They are Telford Court in Northgate and Ballet in Midrand. And in both of these complexes, it was the same developer, Group something, who've now bankrupt, which is not really surprising. And what they did is they appointed a managing agent. You see, the developer or the 100% of the body corporate initially. So they appoint the managing agent. And this particular managing agent was corrupt. After a few years, both complexes had expelled them under a cloud of charges of fraud and forensic audits, and I saw it firsthand. In Telford Court, they were buying lawnmowers every week. Every week they were buying a lawnmower. I don't think the lawnmowers ever arrived. What happened was they expelled them and they got new managing agents in. And it takes years and years and years to recover from corruption. And in other complexes like Polar Fields in Morningside, I bought 2 units there. And when I bought it, they were recovering from bankruptcy. So an immature body corporate mismanaged the money. I don't know the story there. I got involved when they were under some kind of administration. What had happened was a new managing agent got involved, and they had lent the money to the body corporate on condition that they ran it. And they did a very good job. And I saw within a few years, our finances came right, and the maintenance of the complex is good, and it's run well, and the levies are stable. But for those investors who invested early, they went through a really rough ride of seeing the complex actually go into bankruptcy or close to bankruptcy. So those are my 8 reasons why I steer clear of brand new developments, and why I certainly steer clear of buying off-plan. And I hope this has benefited you. And if it has benefited you, please consider sharing this video with somebody else, somebody who's looking to invest in property, and or is already investing in property and on his 3rd or 4th brand new investment. Share this with them, and hopefully you can help a friend. Thank you.